Journo's back here at the Newcastle United training ground for Eddie Howe's pre-match press conference ahead of the trip to Everton tomorrow night. I'm here with Jordan Cronin. Got here all right today, Jordan?
Yeah, managed to make it in today. No snow at all, melted now, so yeah, no problems for me. What about you, Dom?
Yeah, swimmingly until I got to the training ground. Then a Newcastle player, Emil Kraft, steps out behind his car. I nearly run him over, but classy Emil Kraft stops, lets me through, and I'm just thankful he didn't suffer another injury blow for courtesy of myself, because after 12 months out, that's probably the last thing he needed. He wouldn't have forgave us for that. But we'll always start on the injury front anyway,
yeah,
Jordan.
Do, yeah.
And what did Eddie Howe have to say this morning?
Yeah, so I think it's been widely reported during the build-up to this press conference that Nick Pope's going to be out for a very lengthy time. The timescale from Eddie Howe this morning is it's going to be 4 months. He's went to see a couple of specialists to diagnose the problem. Obviously, we know he's dislocated his shoulder, but he will undergo surgery. He hasn't underwent surgery yet, but will. And yeah, will be out until I think about March time. So big blow for the player, big blow for Newcastle especially, because look, he's been a massive player since he joined the football club, but I think certainly within the last few weeks, that PSG game, incredible performance. I think you'll miss him a lot, but on that as well, it presents an opportunity, as this injury crisis has, to other players. And yeah, Martin Dubravka will get an opportunity. Look, he was number one for this football club for 3 years, I think it was. Rarely at Newcastle down, was rated very, very highly. I think since Nick Pope's came in, you can probably say there's a difference between the two, but Martin Dubravka in his own right is still a very, very good goalkeeper. And yeah, I think a run of games will help him. I think it's been difficult for him over the last couple of years, because when he has played, it's been one game in and then out for a few weeks again, or even longer, whereas this time he will get a run of games, and I do think that'll benefit him. So we'll have to wait and see how Martin Dubravka performs. I'm sure we'll move on to probably the questions about potential goalkeepers coming in January. I think one that was mentioned this week, David De Gea, Aaron Ramsdale has been mentioned as well. But I think what Eddie Howe said in that press conference, it does sound like Martin Dubravka will be given an opportunity, and if he impresses in these 3-4 weeks before the January transfer window, then yeah, it will be Martin Dubravka's jersey, and Newcastle will not feel the need to go out and sign a goalkeeper in January.
Yeah, Martin Dubravka, like you say, Jordan, is sort of helped provide the platform for where Newcastle are now, keeping the club almost single-handedly at times in games and help them stay in the Premier League. And I think one thing Eddie Howe has spoke about is showing loyalty to his players, and I'd say Martin Dubravka was probably the one player where he brought Nick Pope in. Despite Martin Dubravka playing a key role in keeping Newcastle in the league, it brought Nick Pope in, and Martin Dubravka hasn't really had a look in since. Went out on loan to Manchester United, and he's played that Chelsea game the back end of last season when Nick Pope was out injured, and then the Carabao Cup game at Manchester United last month. And yeah, I think Martin Dubravka is, in terms of number twos in the Premier League, is probably up there with the best. And yeah, I hope for his sake and for Newcastle's sake, he doesn't let the team down, and he puts in good performances, and Newcastle can carry on the form they've been in recent months, really, because it's since the September international break they'd be top of the form table in the Premier League the last 10 games. So I asked Eddie Howe a question, the fact that since they've started playing Champions League football, no Premier League side have picked up more points than Newcastle, and they've got the best goal difference of any side in the Premier League over that period. So really impressive, and the players who've stepped in this sort of difficult injury crisis period have really come to the fore. And that was another question I asked Eddie Howe, was the returning players, of which there's a couple on the horizon, the likes of Sean Longstaff, Sven Botman, potentially in the coming weeks. Eddie Howe wouldn't get drawn into saying specific dates on those players, but asked about those players, if they come back in, will they just walk back into the side, given the way Jamal Lascelles, Louis Miley, players like that are performing. And Eddie Howe said, to be honest, they probably will, because of the hectic fixture schedule, where you've got Everton on Thursday. Okay, not expecting any players back for that game, but then you've got Spurs, you've got the AC Milan game, you've got Fulham, you've got the Chelsea game, you've got Luton, 6 games before Christmas. So hectic schedule over the next few weeks, and yeah, hopefully we'll see a couple of players back in action that would be a big boost for Newcastle during this busy period.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned there about the start that they'd be top of the Premier League when their Champions League campaign kicked off. It's quite incredible start that, Dom. You think about the narrative where I think Newcastle playing 3 games a week, dipping performances, hasn't dipped the performances at all. It's actually just added to the injury problem. So, I mean, without looking at the league table, I would presume that Newcastle wouldn't have had as good as a record since the Champions League started, but they do. And yeah, it's a remarkable stat, and it goes a long way to, again, showing how remarkable this group of players is, to be able to do that. But yeah, although the Nick Pope news is very difficult for the football club, it was also a bit of good news on that day. I think Eddie Howe did sort of hint at a few players being back potentially for that Tottenham game. I think it'll probably be the same starting 11 as it has been for the last 3 games against Everton. And I think maybe the back end of the week when they play Tottenham Hotspur, they may have 1 or 2 back. I think the main one, another hint that was dropped on social media, Sean Longstaff. I think he almost hinted at the fact he would be back this week. A bit strange. Yeah, it was a bit strange tweeting about a game 48 hours after it happened. So it was a little social media hint by Sean Longstaff there. Sven Botman's also been on social media this week. What was it? A 3-word message. What was the message again?
It's very close.
I think
it was something along those lines.
So
I'll get it up.
Yeah, but there's two players there who, yeah, big players, and sounds like they're close on that as well. Joe Willock, as Eddie Howe confirmed last week, isn't a long-term injury, so I think 3 players off the top of my head, we could actually see them back, say in the next week or so, which would be a massive boost. Again, the goalkeeping situation is really difficult, but the injury problems do seem to be easing a little bit. They're still without many key players, but yeah, I mean, yeah, they get a few players back for this busy period. They might lose more, but at least we are seeing some progress in that department. Next topic.
It was last few steps.
Good to clarify.
Injury message, and after 2 and a bit months out, that's good to hear. I think he has posted something similar in the past when he was back in sort of light training, then suffered another breakdown. But hopefully he's back, and we'll see him on the pitch soon enough. But having said that, we've said a few times before in our videos, Jamal Lascelles has stepped into the side and done a very good job.
Yeah.
So yeah, moving on.
Transfer plans?
Well, yeah. January's coming around soon enough. Eddie Howe was obviously asked about the goalkeeper situation and how it would impact January transfer plans, and he said at the moment they've got a suitable player in Martin Dubravka who will get his opportunity over the next month. And moving further forward into the pitch, Eddie Howe was asked about Louis Miley and whether that need for a Sandro Tonali replacement, if you like, the likes of Calvin Phillips being heavily linked with a move in January, almost negates the fact to bring a player like him in. And Eddie Howe spoke about him wanting to operate with 6 midfielders, and Louis Miley was included in that number. So whether Newcastle go out and bring another player in that midfield position remains to be seen. The very, very sort of coy on the January transfer plans, and Eddie Howe said no inquiries or approaches have been made for any players at this stage, as you'd expect. They want to see where the injury situation leaves them in a month's time, because as we've said, it could start to look very different if you get the likes of Sean Longstaff, Joe Willock. Elliot Anderson won't be too far away, we hope, come January. So the midfields, compounded with Louis Miley getting a run of games in the side and getting his experience and confidence well up, could start to look a lot healthier, and the need for a midfielder could start to be a lot less, and other positions could start to become a priority.
Yeah, I think as it currently stands now, I wouldn't go and sign a midfielder in January. I think the emergence of Lewis Miley has turned a lot of heads. I mean, Eddie Howe got asked about in the press conference. Lewis Miley hasn't just came in against 3 random teams, he's came in against 3 top-class teams.
Made him laugh, didn't it?
It did, yes. You spell it out, was it Chelsea, Paris Saint-Germain and Manchester United, and to perform brilliantly in all those 3 games is a testament to him. I mean, we keep mentioning his age, but it is quite astounding that he's still only 17 years of age. And I think in that Manchester United game on Saturday, I actually thought that Lewis Miley showed shades of Sean Longstaff, because in that first half he was quite a threat down that right hand side. He was making them inside runs into the box, linking up with Kieran Trippier and Miguel Almiron. We hadn't seen that quite as much in the 2 games before that, especially not against Paris Saint-Germain, because obviously Newcastle were sort of backs against the walls in that game. I think Chelsea was an opportunity for Lewis Miley just to get a feel for Premier League football, and did very well in his debut. But I thought that Manchester United game he was really, really good, and yeah, I thought he showed a performance of an all-round midfielder. So look, it's a lot. I think it's a lot to ask for a son. You're putting a lot of pressure on his shoulders, but I think as he's probably shown in these last 3 games, he's capable of handling. So bringing in another midfielder, for example, say Callum Phillips, who Newcastle have been interested in, it could actually come as a detriment to Lewis Miley and his development. So he's getting a run of games in the Premier League now. If he's fit enough and he can keep on doing it, let's stick with him, because I think any football club, this club loves seeing local talent come through. And I think, again, 17 years of age, Lewis Miley, he looks like a really special player, and I think he's proved that, and he hopefully will continue to prove that in the coming weeks. January, as you mentioned there, Dom, the plans haven't been finalised yet. It all boils down to injuries. Newcastle go and pick up 2 injuries in one position from now till January. They'll probably be a priority position then. But as it stands, where do they need to strengthen at the minute, do you feel?
I'm not sure. Maybe the centre.
I've thrown to the bus there, haven't I?
Yeah, well, it's hard to say really. I think the centre back position is an area probably Newcastle needed to strengthen in the summer, and you're sort of seeing it's threadbare where Fabian Schär, Jamal Lascelles get an injury. Who you're starting at centre back? You're starting Paul Dummett or Emil Kraft, who are definitely sort of back end squad players, if you like.
And then he got run over this morning as well.
Yes, I know. I'm sorry, Emil. But yeah, they are players who they're Carabao Cup, FA Cup 3rd round players. Well, we'll get on to that as well, because Eddie Howe was asked about the FA Cup draw, which we touched on in our previous Geordie Journos video. Louis Miley would have been, 10 the last time there was a derby? Yeah. Something like that.
10-9, yeah.
So, next month, what did Eddie Howe have to say about that, Jordan? Because it'll be his first taste of a derby, and he'll be looking to get his first FA Cup win as Newcastle United manager.
Yeah, he thought it was a joke, didn't he? Yeah, he got asked about the Sunderland game, and he said, he virtually said he thought it was a joke. He thought someone was having his leg, winding him up, and then touched upon the cup fixtures that Newcastle already had this season. Again, it's quite incredible. You think about the Champions League group of death. You then got both Manchester clubs in the Carabao Cup, and then you get a derby with Sunderland for the first time in 8 years. It is 8 years, isn't it?
It'll be 8 years.
It's been
from 2020.
Yeah, it's been so long, but yeah, he said he was looking forward to it. I don't know. He might not reflect the whole fan base's thoughts, and he says he's looking forward to it. But it's an opportunity for him to manage in a derby. Probably one he certainly didn't expect this season. Nor might not have expected in the seasons in the future as well, because obviously Sunderland are in the Championship. Okay, they're in a playoff, probably been a playoff race again this season, but yeah, I don't think anyone expected the prospect of a derby anytime soon. But yeah, I mean that schedule after Christmas now, that game wedged in between Manchester City and Liverpool. You think about previous FA Cup games. Eddie Howe was named he did for the Sheffield Wednesday game. He named like a weekend starting 11. I don't think he'd be able to do that this year round. If Newcastle continue the trend of going out in the 3rd round against lower league opposition, that would be disastrous this time round. So, obviously too far look ahead in terms of team selection, etc. But I do imagine Eddie Howe will put out a full strength 11 in that one.
Yeah, I cleverly dodged your question about January there, didn't I? So in terms of that, centre back, and I think a striker. They need another person in, because Alexander Isak is probably someone who, since he's come back from injury, he's scoring goals, he's getting amongst it, but you can tell he's still only recently returned. I think his performance levels, his running levels aren't quite what they could be, and I think there's a lot more to come from him once he gets back to real full fitness and playing at full tilt. But again, with Callum Wilson out potentially towards the back end of the month, maybe even longer, you're looking at, we need another option at Newcastle. And Anthony Gordon, okay, he's a player who could slot in for a game or two, but Newcastle needs someone who can come in and actually be a natural striker in that position, almost an upgrade on Chris Wood, which the club are yet to actually bring in. But just on Anthony Gordon, big game for him. There's a bit of fitness concern after the Man U game, after he limped off with a hip injury, but he's training. And Eddie Howe, Jordan, it was your question, spoke very very positively about Anthony Gordon and his return to Goodison Park tomorrow night.
Yeah, I asked him if Anthony Gordon was prepared for a hostile atmosphere, which, let's be honest, he will get. I think it was toned down last time because I think Anthony Gordon came on when Newcastle was a 3-0 up, 3-1 up. But this time, Anthony Gordon's gonna start the game, and yeah, Everton have got a lot of upheaval at the moment in terms of the Premier League points deduction, so that's roaring the fans on. Yeah, and I think Anthony Gordon adds that little bit extra spice come Thursday night. But Eddie Howe has just told Anthony Gordon to enjoy it and try and not get caught up in the occasion. Sound advice, I suppose, but easier said than done. But I just want to reflect sort of on the journey that Anthony Gordon has been on since joining Everton. I think he goes back there probably a 10 times better player than he was when he left, and he's shown that this season. So I think in many ways Anthony Gordon actually goes back there with a point to prove. Is he the type of character that can thrive off a hostile atmosphere? I think he is. I think Newcastle fans had seen that when he played for Everton, when he came to St James's Park and was quite happy to wind up most of the fan base. I think he's got that edge to him, and yeah, I think Anthony Gordon will go back to Goodison Park with a point to prove. I don't think the atmosphere will impact him. If anything, I think it'll spur him on. But I suppose we'll have to wait and see. But as I say, he goes back there as an incredible form, the best form of his life. Or is it 6 goals this season?
7 in his last 21, I think, which
which
equalled his tally he got throughout his Everton career, which I think is really impressive. And that 45 million fee paid in January was almost mocked by Everton fans and the wider football fan base as well. And I think even from a Newcastle point of view, it looked a bit heavy for a Premier League player, although 21 at the time hadn't really proven himself or got the figures in terms of goals and assists that you'd probably expect from a £45 million player. But this season, 6 goals, 7 in his last 21, and he's played a role, I think 3 assists and 1 2 penalties, so 5 assists if you're a fantasy football connoisseur. But so he's been a real threat for Newcastle this season, arguably the best player, and he goes to Everton looking like a £45 million bargain, and
it is,
it'll be good to see how he performs in a difficult atmosphere. And Goodison Park, potentially for the last time, will be our last trip maybe to Goodison Park, pending a potential cup trip, maybe. So how are you feeling about that, Jordan?
Yeah,
I'll throw you under the bus.
I'm not a fan of the press box, put it that way. It's very, very tight for someone that is overweight like myself. So it's quite a tight squeeze. Wooden benches, wooden seats.
Long legs, Jordan, that's what it is.
Long legs, that's of course what it is. But if you want to get out this press box, you have to make sure 10 people there the side. You also get up, you've got to squeeze past them, jump over people. It's I'm hammering the press box, but as a stadium, Goodison Park is one of the historic English grounds, a proper English ground, a great atmosphere inside there. As covering Newcastle, we've witnessed that. Certainly the year, it could have been a couple of years, or last year actually, when the 2 seasons ago, when Alex Iwobi scored a 97th minute winner.
Not late, it was very, very late.
We had that was chaos in the press box that day because you're surrounded by the fans. I think obviously Frank Lampard was in charge, and Ashley Cole that day actually went and punched the TV. I think it ended up smashing in the end, didn't it? Punched the TV. That's out of joy. It was, Frank Lampard actually. He broke his.
He did.
Was it one of his knuckles? Or?
Yeah, he broke something in his hand. Yeah, we did a press conference afterwards and said, I broke something. So, Everton, Goodison Park, iconic ground, great atmosphere. But I don't think either of us will miss the press box. It's dated and very traditional ground. But we'll look forward to potentially visiting Everton's new ground in seasons to come. But speaking of stadiums, another big talking point this week, a contentious one, an emotive one, Eddie Howe was asked about St James's Park and what's going to happen to it. A survey was put out to supporters who'd opted in to club communications, whether they'd be open to knocking down St James's Park effectively and rebuilding a brand new state-of-the-art stadium on the same site. Eddie Howe was asked about that. He said he'd be in favour of anything that helps the club in that regard. He'd want to see St James's Park expanded, and if not, a new stadium on the same site. But he did stress that same site has to be, it's a unique location, it's great, sort of the heartbeat of the city, he described it as, because it's bang in the middle of the city centre, which is, I think, something Newcastle fans, I don't think Newcastle take it for granted, but you almost forget when you go to these away grounds just how far out they sometimes are, and Newcastle being bang in the city centre is something the club can't really afford to lose, because it's just so beneficial to the club and so iconic, dominating the skyline of the city. Jordan, what were your thoughts on not only what Eddie Howe had to say, but the sort of stadium and future of St James's Park as a whole?
Yeah, it's obviously it's a conversation that'll dominate in years to come until actually something's done with the ground or decisions put in place. I think the survey was to put the feelers out on what fans will be open to. I'm looking forward to seeing them results, but I think if you're going to say to me now, would you knock down St James's Park and build a different ground on the same site, a bigger stadium, more seats for supporters to get in? I would probably say yes, because I think where the stadium is now, you mentioned it there, Dom, it is pivotal to the city.
That's the big thing, isn't it?
It's such an iconic spot, surrounded by loads of bars. Probably, I think it's the most bars in the country that surround St James's Park. You mentioned there about other stadiums. We've been to stadiums in the Premier League that are literally in the middle of nowhere, and it's not good. It's not a good fan experience. St James's Park is an incredible place, an incredible stadium. I wouldn't ever want to lose the stadium as it is, but I think we're at a stage now where the demand for tickets is really high, and if they can do something similar to what Tottenham Hotspur did with their stadium, where they knocked
it down and built another one on top of it.
I think I would probably be in favour of that, but I would in many ways be a little bit reluctant as well, because I love St James's Park. It's as I say, incredible place, but if it's an opportunity to get more fans in the ground and progress as a football club, then I would probably be in favour. I don't know about you, Dom.
Yeah, I'd probably agree. It's just finding a place to play in the meantime. Tottenham had the luxury of playing at Wembley Stadium, which is
good point,
no doubt a massive upgrade on what White Hart Lane was at the time. So where Newcastle play, I've honestly got no idea.
Build some temporary stands over Gateshead, maybe? Yeah,
potentially do what they did in Qatar in the World Cup with the temporary stadium. But yeah, it's going to be difficult. There's so many logistical factors at play. I'd probably be in favour of expanding and modernising St James's Park as best they can.
Yeah.
But how they do that, again, the club are in the initial sort of conversations and processes of doing that. They contacted architects, spoke behind the scenes. How are they going to deal with this stadium situation? Because it's very much a long-term priority for the club, because you need to generate as much revenue as you possibly can. We've seen this week with the new corporate areas, again a contentious subject, but then Phoenix coming in and sponsoring the rooftops corporate section. So the club are trying to explore all avenues, and a stadium is almost the key to that. If you can generate match day revenue, increase match day revenue, and other areas, obviously £12,000 corporate season tickets is probably not what the general fans want to hear, but ultimately it's things like that will help the club in terms of financial fair play and things like that move into an elite sort of global powerhouse of a club moving forward. And yeah, the stadium will be key to that. It's just how the club manage it. We don't have the answers. I'm sure the club don't have the answers at the moment, and there's obvious sensitivities around the stadium as a whole. And I think one thing we've probably learned travelling, been lucky enough to travel to the likes of Borussia Dortmund and even PSG to an extent, is just the sort of gap in not size necessarily, but just the facilities behind the scenes and the infrastructure of these Champions League stadiums. AC Milan's a little bit different because it's such an iconic relic, but these stadiums, or even going to the likes of Manchester City, Manchester United, Arsenal, Spurs, there's still a decent gap in terms of just behind the scenes, the infrastructure of St James's Park, which is becoming dated. And you fear if the club don't make improvements soon, they'll start to almost be left in the dirt a little bit in terms of if they want to compete at the top, the stadium needs to match that.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. So yeah, we don't know the answers yet, but very much looking forward
It's
to
a long
see.
way of saying
Yeah.
nothing, but don't know.
Yeah. But it's no, I'm looking forward to seeing the survey results and what ultimately happens at St James's Park. I agree with the sentiment that I would rather see St James's Park extended, but obviously you've got issues with that in terms of the listed buildings behind the East Stand, etc. So that would be my number one choice, to expand it somehow. But if not, and they can find a way of expanding the capacity by knocking it down and then rebuilding it, I would probably be in favour of that. But ideally, I would love to see St James's Park stay the way it is with some extended seats somewhere. I think that's it. Shall we wrap it up here, Don? We've had 25 minutes of been talking here. I hope people have listened to the end. Hopefully you
I
have.
like a long video these days.
We do. We're known for it now, I think, long videos.
Geordie waffle.
Geordie waffle, that's exactly what it is. You'll have more Geordie waffle tomorrow when we go
with the King of Waffle.
With the King of Waffle.
Kennedy.
The King of Waffle. Yeah, King of Waffle. Liam Kennedy, he'll be back tomorrow for the trip to Everton. So I'll do his T's and C's as a wrap up. Please like, share and subscribe. Click the bell to get all your latest Geordie Journos content, and we'll see you tomorrow at Goodison Park.